Executive Suite with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi.
Wind power. Advocates say it promises plentiful, clean energy, while detractors label it costly and unnecessary. The state of Rhode Island sided with supporters, offering bipartisan support for 2 wind farms off the coast and giving Deepwater Wind a lucrative deal to build them. Are the projects on track? How much will they cost? And could they become another Rhode Island boondoggle? This week on Executive Suite, we'll get answers from Deepwater Wind Chief Administrative Officer Jeffrey Grybowski.
Welcome to the first episode of Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. You know, there's no bigger challenge facing Rhode Island than figuring out how to grow the economy, create jobs, and get the state back on its feet. And here on Executive Suite, we're going to talk to business leaders about their successes and their challenges. We want to have open, honest conversations about what's working and what needs to change. So let's get things started with our first guest, Jeffrey Grybowski. He's Chief Administrative Officer of Deepwater Wind. Jeff, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Ted.
Glad to have you on the very first episode here. It's a big honor.
It's an honor being on the top-rated business program in Rhode Island.
It is. It is. I think this will be the most watched episode of this program ever.
I'm sure it will.
So let's start with the basics here on Deepwater Wind. The company was picked back in 2008. There was a bidding process. People are just going to want to know, what are you building and when are turbines going to start spinning? So give us the basics on the first of the 2 projects.
Sure. So the short answer is we're building offshore wind farms. And we expect that the first turbines will be spinning in 2014, just about a year and a half from now. We are building our first project off of Block Island. So that's a project most people have heard about. That's a smaller project, a demonstration scale. So it's about 3 miles southeast of Block Island. So if you're standing at the southeast light at Block Island and you're looking to the southeast, you'll see that wind farm in a few years.
So my producer Nick called up the map for us you sent along.
That's right.
So walk us through, what are we looking at here?
So you're looking at a map of Block Island, and to the southeast in yellow you'll see 5 dots. Those are the 5 turbines, and each one of those turbines will be 6 megawatts. And so in total, that's 30 megawatts. That's roughly the amount that of power you need to power about 17,000 homes. So these are pretty big turbines. They will, in fact, be among the biggest wind turbines anywhere in the world at 6 megawatts. There are a bunch of these turbines in Europe right now, offshore and onshore. The 6 megawatt turbine is a really exciting thing because it really is the next stage of developing wind farms globally.
And these are coming from Siemens, the big German
This is Siemens. Siemens is one of the largest global industrial companies. They are the best manufacturer of wind turbines globally. And this Siemens turbine that we're going to install off Block Island is about 600 feet tall. And the rotor diameter from one tip to the other tip of those blades is about 550 feet wide.
Wow.
So they are very big pieces of industrial equipment. It's a real power plant. But the great thing is, it's clean, it's renewable.
So this is going to connect to Block Island, and it's going to feed back into, we saw the 2 lines there. The yellow line was taking you from the turbines back to Block Island Power Company, right? And then a red line going back to the mainland. Where was the power going to go? What's going to happen?
So many Rhode Islanders may not realize that Block Island is not electrically connected to the rest of the state right now. So the island is powered right now by several diesel generators that are on the island, and diesel fuel comes across on ferries to power that island. And Block Island is such a beautiful place. Unfortunately, it has some of the dirtiest power generators in all of New England.
And so expensive power, too,
Very
right?
expensive, up to 60 cents a kilowatt hour during the summer. So our plan is we're going to connect the wind farm first to the island.
Which is the yellow line there.
That's right. That's the yellow line. So we will connect into the distribution system that exists on Block Island. And then the red line is the transmission system that we are also going to build, which connects the wind farm and the island to the mainland.
And where's it connecting up top there?
Our proposed landfall is in Narragansett.
In Narragansett, okay.
So we need to take that wind power and interconnect with National Grid's existing system.
And then it'll feed into the broader power supply.
It'll feed into the whole New England power market.
Okay.
Correct.
Now, what has to happen for you to get there? We're still sticking with the Block Island project here. I mean, right now we're talking it's middle of 2012. You're talking about spinning by the end of 2014.
Right.
What happens in between? How do you get there?
So we've hit a couple big milestones to date, and the biggest are we have an agreement with National Grid to buy our power. That's a big milestone. The second big milestone is that Siemens has agreed to sell us these brand new turbines that they are going to be marketing across the globe. It was a big coup for us to have this partnership with Siemens, one of the largest industrial companies in the world.
Wouldn't they sell them to anybody?
No, they wouldn't, because this is a brand new turbine. It'll be this deployment here in Block Island will probably be only the second deployment anywhere in the world, and this will be the first offshore turbine in the U.S. So it's a high-profile project even for a company like Siemens. So those are pretty big steps to date. In 2012, we'll be finishing the permitting process for the project. So our own Coastal Resources Management Council here in Rhode Island will be reviewing the project, along with a number of federal agencies that have to review our project plans, how we're going to build the project. We expect that we'll get through those approvals in 2012 and early 13. That allows us to build at the end of 2013.
Will there be public hearings? How does that process work?
Yeah, I think we'll have pretty extensive public hearings.
Okay.
We will have public hearings.
People want to give you an earful,
some people do want to give us an earful, but I think a whole lot more people are excited to see this go forward. So we'll be having public hearings on Block Island, in Narragansett, probably in Providence as well, so that people can hear about the project and give the federal and state agencies their input.
Now, construction, let's say you get the approvals you need. We're talking now into 2013, 2014 for construction.
Correct.
Where do they get built? How many people get hired? What's sort of the industrial process to get those out there?
This is an enormous industrial project. So although we call it a demonstration scale project, all-in costs, the transmission line and the wind farm is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 million. So the turbines will come from Europe. Much of the foundation, which is the metal structure that connects the turbine to the seafloor, will be fabricated at Quonset Point in North Kingston. Mm-hmm. So we'll be hiring several hundred people to weld lots and lots of steel. There's about 1,000 tons of steel that goes into the foundation that connects that turbine to the ocean floor. So the foundation goes in, the turbines come in from Europe with enormous vessels that pick that 1,000 tons of turbine up into the air and put it onto that foundation in the middle of the ocean. It's quite an enormous undertaking, and there'll be hundreds of people involved in that process.
Now, there is a second project. This is where people sometimes get confused, and we're talking a number of years out there. Let's, Nick, if we could, call up the map of sort of broader New England, and this is going to show you the, what are you calling it, the Deepwater Wind?
Deepwater Wind Energy Center.
What is this?
This is our second project, and while Block Island is the demonstration scale project that we think we will build first, the second project is located further off in federal waters. It is a much larger wind farm.
How many are we talking?
150 turbines versus the 5 that we're building at Block Island. So 150 turbines located about 18 miles to the east of Block Island, 15 miles to the southwest in Martha's Vineyard. So that's really where it's located, between the vineyard and Block Island. That project we are designing to sell power into multiple states: Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and even New York.
Mm-hmm. Now, one more question on that, which is how far away is that project, and how much? I mean, I think you've said that's more than $1 billion.
Yeah,
probably.
That's a multi-billion-dollar project, because it includes not just 150 turbines, but it also includes a transmission system that would link Long Island to southeastern New England. So there's quite a bit involved there. It's a multi-billion-dollar project. It will require several big power buyers, utilities in New England and Long Island, to buy power from that project. And the first year of operation, if everything went according to plans, would be about 2017.
2017, so ways away on that.
Ways away. Construction would have to start probably around 14 and 15 to get to reach that 2017 date.
All right, we have to take a break. When we come back, the challenges and the critics of offshore wind. Our guest this week, Deepwater Wind's Jeffrey Grybowski. Stay with us. You're watching Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. Our guest this week is Jeff Grybowski, Chief Administrative Officer of Deepwater Wind. Jeff, let's turn to some of the concerns that are out there about any project at this point. We're still reeling from what just happened with 38 Studios. People don't need to be updated on that. Is this another one of those deals? Are taxpayers on the hook if let's say something falls apart, or you can't build these turbines? How much has gone out the door already? How much is going to go out the door?
Right. Well, that's a pretty easy answer, because we're building our project all with private money. So there are no taxpayer dollars involved. We have invested probably around $25 million to date on the Block Island project, which includes lots of engineering studies, designs, ocean surveys. We've been measuring the wind out on Block Island for a number of years. It's a very intensive, capital-intensive process to build a wind farm. All of that money from our own private investors. So if for whatever reason I'm 100% wrong and the wind farm's never built, The only people who lose are our private investors, but that's not going to happen. We're going to be building at the end of 2013, and we're pretty convinced Rhode Island will be the first place that we see an offshore wind farm in the U.S.
And so you think you'll beat Cape Wind?
I think we will.
Yeah.
You know, we have a pretty healthy rivalry. I think we very much support their project and want to see them get in the water as well. But I think as neighboring companies and neighboring states, we have a pretty healthy rivalry about who will be in the water first.
I want to stick with what you were saying there about investors. One lesson from 38 Studios a lot of people took away is the lack of private capital coming into that company made it unclear whether they should have been getting the support they got. Who are your backers? Where is the money coming from? Is it in China? Is it somewhere else? Where are your funders?
No, our funders are primarily a company called D.E. Shaw, which is a technology company and investment company based in New York. They've invested in lots of energy companies, including renewable energy companies, and another company called First Wind, which is a Massachusetts-based onshore wind developer. And the difference between the businesses, at least from one perspective here, is that when you start to build a wind farm, at the beginning you have to know what it's going to cost you to build it. And our investors know what it's going to cost to build a wind farm. We've reserved all those dollars. We have the dollars to build this wind farm. So we're not looking to anyone else to come up with additional dollars. We have what we need. We're going to build that Block Island wind farm, and there's no taxpayer dollars involved.
How much you're going to need getting out. You're not going to come to the state in the middle of 2014 and say, we're so close, we have half the blades, but give us a couple bucks and we'll get it.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
You heard it here.
All right, yeah, we're gonna keep that tape. People, I wrote a story recently about you guys for WPRI.com, and some of the pushback I got was, well, sure, they're not getting a check from the General Assembly, but the project is happening because you got a 20-year power purchasing agreement, a contract with National Grid that'll pay Deepwater, I think it's almost $500 million above market rates over a 20-year period. And you make no bones about that. That's why this is happening, right? Can you explain that?
Yeah, well, we're a renewable energy company, and every renewable energy project in the U.S. Is able to be built because they sign a long-term contract with a utility company. Because unlike other types of resources, all of our capital comes up front. The wind is free. Once we put the steel in the ground, we have very, very little operating costs in the long term. So we need a huge amount of money up front to build the project. Once the project is built, we can go forward and maintain it at a pretty low cost level, which means we need the security up front to know that if we build it, someone is going to buy that power over a 20-year period, which allows us to pay back those bank loans and private investors who gave you all the money up front. So every renewable energy project gets a long-term contract, and they largely happen because state governments have made policy decisions over the last decade, really, to promote renewable energy. So Rhode Island has a renewable energy standard which requires National Grid to get a percentage of its power from renewable energy sources. That's not unusual. Almost every
regardless of whether it's from you, there's a separate there's an overall policy in place.
Absolutely. There's an overall policy that was adopted quite a number of years ago now in the early 2000s, which requires utilities in many states on the Atlantic seaboard, almost every state in the Northeast has this kind of requirement, to buy renewable energy. That's a policy decision that states have made, and they've made those decisions because they're looking long term. They know that long term we need to diversify our fuel sources. Natural gas looks pretty cheap today, but it was only a few years ago that natural gas was really, really expensive, and people were looking for alternatives to natural gas. Now we're seeing natural gas at its low point. We shouldn't make the mistake of thinking that natural gas is always going to be low, so we need a diverse set of fuels in New England. Offshore wind should be part of that mix.
Let's talk about what does it mean, the Block Island project, for the average Rhode Islander's electric bill?
Yeah, I think National Grid has estimated what the impact will be once we're up and operational, and the impact will be about $1.35 a month on the average electricity bill.
Now, that doesn't sound like much. We actually did a PRI poll which showed more than half of Rhode Islanders said they'd be willing to pay that to get the project going. But some businesses, and this is a business show, have expressed concern about bringing up Rhode Island already does have high electricity costs, and adding this on top of that could raise their concerns. I mean, you must see these people. What do you say to them? What's your pitch to them?
Well, our pitch to them there are a few things to think about. Number one, we need to have a diverse mix of fuel sources. And while it sometimes is painful to make an investment up front in something that we think is going to pay off in the long term, it's something that as a state, as a region, as a country, we need to do. We need to invest in fuel sources today, even those that are not the rock bottom cheapest sources of fuel, so that in the long term we have diversity and we're not dependent on one source like gas, which could spike up. And wind has the real benefit of having stable pricing. We can predict where that pricing is going to be 10, 20 years into the future. You can't say the same about fossil fuels. So while we don't think that wind will ever be 80% of our power generation in this region, we do think that it can be 10% of what we have, 15%. And at that level, it gives us a right mix between fossil fuels that are market-based and long-term stable fuels like renewable energy.
All right, we have to take another break. Coming up, is Rhode Island good or bad for business? We'll ask Jeff Grybowski, our guest, weighing in. Stay with us. You're watching Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi. Our guest this week, Jeff Grybowski, Chief Administrative Officer, Deepwater Wind. Jeff, I was wondering, if these turbines get built off Block Island as you expect them to, can people see them? Can people go out and what's going to be it could almost be a tourist attraction.
I think many people will want to go out and see them, frankly. They will be quite the sight. It'll be, it'll be a first for North America, really, to see these wind turbines off the coast. So they'll be about 3 miles southeast of Block Island. So you'll be able to go to that southeast corner of the island and see them at a distance. But my guess is quite a few people will be taking their boats out there.
So let's turn to some broader questions. I mentioned 38 Studios earlier. You worked for Governor Kucheri. I don't think you were there when 38 Studios transpired, as you're probably glad to say.
I left many years before that.
You were a while before
Yes.
that, yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, what do you take away from what we've just seen as someone who served in government and knew that, Governor Kucheri said to us at the time, it was hard to be the governor of Rhode Island when we had all sorts of other problems with our business climate. You went looking for things like, they said, Deepwater was an example where we could sort of attract them, 38 Studios was. I mean, what's your take now that as we're looking back on what happened?
Yeah, well, I think it's, I hope that one consequence is that people don't draw the conclusion that there's no role at all for state governments to get involved in economic development, because state governments do play a role. And I think in addition to setting the stage and doing all the fundamentals like keeping taxes low, having regulatory processes that are transparent and quick, and having good schools, governments play roles. We have a credit crunch in the country today. And there are a lot of good companies out there that probably could use some additional assistance. And that's the perfect role for a state government to take a look at its strengths, to try to foster a cluster of industries, and to help with credit support. So I think, while we look back and it's awful what happened with 38 Studios, I don't think that in the long term we ought to sort of abandon the idea of looking at what are the real needs out there in the business community and try to fill those gaps. And I think right now, credit crunch for small businesses is kind of a big one.
What about the EDC? You served in, I know there were various debates during the Kucheri years about what to do about the EDC now. Governor Chafee is looking at, this is the Economic Development Corporation. First of all, has the EDC played any role in what you've done with Deepwater?
I think early on, EDC played a role in the selection of an offshore wind developer. They were part of the team that made the selection, and of course, EDC also is the entity that controls Quonset Point through a subsidiary. So the Quonset Development Corporation is a subsidiary of the Economic Development Corp. Deepwater has a lease at Quonset Point. We have 65 acres under lease at Quonset, and we pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to the state of Rhode Island for that lease. And that's where we'll be basing a lot of our construction and fabrication operations for the wind farms.
So with EDC,
we do deal with them because of that.
Well, do you think, is there especially having seen it in government and now having been outside in the business world, is there a need for EDC? Do you think, should we maybe abolish it, move to a Secretary of Commerce model? I mean, what's your view? Is it relevant?
I think it will always be important for businesses to know where to go to in state government. We want to move to the state. How do we do it? Are there loan programs we can qualify for? How do we find the right kind of worker training? How do we qualify for different programs? I think having a one-stop shop is important. I think in the long term, probably my bias is that every arm of state government needs to be accountable directly to an elected official. So I tend to look at economic development and think long term.
And you were chief of staff?
I was chief of staff of the governor.
Was it
so
hard
that's probably my bias as someone who worked for the governor. I think it's important for agencies to report directly to a governor or another elected
And what was the
official.
relationship with EDC? Or was it sort of doing its own thing, but you were involved because he was on the board? Or was there a disconnect? How did you see it?
Well, I think the way economic development has been driven in the state to date, it's been a separate corporation. The governor acts as chair of that corporation. So it's one step removed from your other average state agency like the Department of Health or the Department of Transportation, where the governor hires and fires the head of those agencies. The same is not true for economic development.
Mm-hmm. Another question along the political lines. You worked in a Republican administration. Republicans are not often super enthused about alternative energy these days. There's a lot of talk about it being, overpriced. It's sort of to make liberals feel good. There's all the talk about Solyndra and that company that fell apart under President Obama. If you're talking to Republicans, what's your argument to them about, why this is something they should be in favor of, building up alternative energy?
Yeah, there are some Republicans, but I will admit that the overwhelming majority of support for renewable energy today comes from the Democratic side of the aisle, unfortunately. But I think
do you think that's a mistake on their part? Do you think the Republicans?
I think it is a mistake. I think the best argument.
Obviously, yeah.
I think the best argument for those on the Republican side of the aisle is that as a country, we can't be wedded to one or two sources of fuel. And our international competitors, China and Germany, are number one and number two in investments in clean energy technology. And while those investments are for power sources that right now might look more expensive than the cheapest sources of fuel, in 10 or 20 years we may be looking back with a great amount of regret at allowing our international competitors to make these huge investments without matching them.
What's the outlook right now for wind? You mentioned earlier natural gas, and I mean when you're looking at the energy mix and how it's changed a lot, the price of natural gas since you guys came on the scene in Rhode Island in 2008.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that affect your project and your planning?
Well, I think it's slightly more challenging in the near term, but it doesn't really change the big picture, because if you look at what's happened with natural gas, it really confirms the story. It's subject to a lot of market factors. We've seen gas prices really high just a few years ago. Now we see gas prices really low. And it's very likely that those gas prices are going to come up again. It's market driven. It's a global market for gas. And those prices are volatile, and you simply can't lock in those prices long term. Therefore, it's important to have at least part of your energy mix locked in and stable. It's like any other sort of investment you make. Certain investments might fluctuate a bit more, but part of your portfolio, maybe you put in bonds and you lock in a different kind of rate that you can depend on longer term.
And if Rhode Island gave up on offshore wind, do you think other states would be galloping forward with it?
Well,
you get the sense?
A lot other states are. So our neighbor in Massachusetts has been at the forefront of offshore wind for a number of years. New Jersey and Delaware and Maryland and New York, they're all deeply involved in offshore wind.
That's all the time we have this week. I want to thank our guest, Jeff Grybowski, first guest, and I want to thank you for watching the debut of Executive Suite here on MyRI TV. If you missed any of the show, you can catch it on our website, WPRI.com. I'm Ted Nesi. We'll see you next week and every week here on Executive Suite.